Good night and welcome to another program of the Full and Abundant Life. And my name is Claudius Davis, and it is certainly a privilege to be here each Wednesday night. And this program, of course, is coming to you from St. Vincent and the Grenadines via the WeFM radio station there. And I'm just waiting for the connection for the link, and as soon as we are connected, we will go to work. But certainly, I want to welcome all of you so far to the program. So, maybe be sure that we're connected on the Facebook page link. So, okay, so I think we are connected there, of course. And let me see, how do I do this? Okay, so I really wanted to, let me just make sure that we are connected while I'm waiting. It does not connect. I wonder why. But I guess the link from the WFM isn't connecting for whatever reason, so I have to wait for that to happen. And I'm sure we'll get a message from Kamal sooner or later. Okay, let me go back here and check something. WFM device not connected. Why am I not connected? Anyway, let me just go right ahead anyway and talk. Uh, I want to focus tonight on a particular theme, but just before, I think this might be it now.
This is WeFM 99.9, the Clean First Sound. For a minute there, I thought I wasn't going to get on. Had some technical difficulties on my end, but got that resolved. And good to know that it's now time for us to present to you this evening's Full and Abundant Life radio program hosted by Dr. Claudius Davis. This is an interactive program that comes your way each and every Wednesday from 9 until 10. It's an interactive program, and to be a part of this evening's program, 4579997 is the number to call. Remember, you can call direct, you can send your WhatsApp text to be a part of this evening's program, and the invitation is there. We'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn you over to Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis, good night and welcome once again.
Good night, and certainly I was panicking there for a while when I noticed that there's a sign that says couldn't connect to WeFM. So
yeah, I actually came in the room and had to come out and come back in.
Okay, no problem. But it's certainly a privilege to be on tonight again, each Wednesday night. I'm sure you gave the number. And by the way, it was just an awesome program that just got ended a while ago. So I was listening to the entire piece in terms of the brain and how the brain function. And I'm hoping he would do a part two in terms of some of the treatment or some of the things that we can do to basically keep our brain healthy and to improve so that we can maximize our ability in terms of our memory and what we certainly can do. So that's a very good piece that he presented for us here tonight. I want to express my condolences for one of my cousin who passed away this morning in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ashley Prescott. Of course, he lives in the Vermont Valley area. He was just recently in Florida, of course, on vacation, and went back, and he passed away. So certainly I want to express my condolences to his family, and to all of his friends there in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and especially in the Vermont Valley. And as I was thinking today about, because I think on the news, most of you may have seen on the news today, most of the major channel, of course, of the verdict with the Gilgo Beach um, serial killer, and I think it's interesting when for me, looking back at, here is someone who just passed, and here's someone whose life are going to be spent in where he would be incarcerated for the actually he'd probably die there. And so it raises the question in terms of how we really value our life and the choices that we do make in life. And so I wanted to walk us down that road. And so I do have a theme that's a little provocative, but I was talking to one of my colleagues today at work, and we were kind of talking about religion, and we were trying to compare um, religion in terms of what we experience as clinicians in our work, and working with people who are struggling with severe psychotic disorders, and whether it be referred to as bipolar disorder or schizophrenic whatever it is, but the psychotic, where people are really delusional and their reality is so compromised that they create an entire um, reality that is different from what we would consider to be normal. And so we were discussing, doing some comparative kind of discussion about what's happening in our world, and how in our work, how we will label certain people as being psychotic. And on the other side of that, when you look at what's happening in our society, whether or not it's in the political arena or within the religious communities, how when you look at really what's happening, how delusional people can become, and how we can now create labels to now justify our psychotic behavior or our delusional behavior. And of course, we were having quite an interesting discussion by comparing what's happening in the world, whether it be in politics. And then we try to address the idea of God, who God truly is, and how we construct our image of God to suit our own idiosyncratic ideas, what's comfortable for us. And we were kind of, some of the discussions that we were having weren't really pleasant discussions. Were very sort of discussion that wouldn't be discussion that you'd want to have in public. But sometimes, if you know me, sometimes I like for us to challenge us and to really, let's look at God. Is God really, in terms of when you look at how we've constructed him, is he really um, the kind of God who is a loving, forgiving, gracious, kind, gentle, or is he the kind of God who is, what we would say, someone who is antisocial, someone who, without any conscience, who will destroy other human beings, innocent people, babies, an entire nation of people, and just say, look, to one group of people, look, here's what it is. I'm going to give you this piece of land over there, and as you go, I want you to kill everybody, kill the animals, kill their babies, just destroy the entire whatever, and take the property, and that's a gift from me to you. Now, if we would bring that same sort of scenario, when you look at what's happening in our world today, there's a lot of these people will probably, we would say that they're terrorists, and so sometimes when you read, you see, God can, our concept of him can be terrorist one day, or he can be a loving, merciful God. And so in our discussion today, we were saying that, look, there's a lot of spiritual psychosis, delusion, that parades itself and clothes itself as legitimate expression, legitimate understanding of who God truly is. And so that's where I really wanted to extend that private conversation to a public forum like this and ask yourself the question, when you look at what's happening in our world today, how we have, we need oil over here, and because we need that, or we need to build certain businesses, we need to have guns, we need to have military weapons, it increase our economy, and therefore this is good business. Therefore, in order for us to do this, we need to create war, we need to destroy all these other people, because we do all of this stuff, but we put labels on it. We call it democracy, we call it justice, there's all kinds of, we create languages and words in order to accommodate our own deficiencies. And so, so when we talk about this, we have to begin to ask ourselves some tough questions. And some of those tough questions is how we talk about, because I want us to take us on the area where we look at this colonization of our social, psychological, political, and spiritual communities. And when you look at all of these cultural trends and how we are developing and how we are changing things, but in my case, in my definition of that, much of this sort of a cultural evolution and trends are nothing more than disguised fashions of our own psychosis and our own delusions. And so we've created, if we talk about some of the terms that we can really talk about, if we talk about certain key concepts, such as global solidarity, what do we mean by global solidarity? And how does global solidarity look like? Well, what it means is that we ought to create trends or create value systems that embrace all of humanity on the planet, so we all can hold hands as brothers and sisters, and we all can get along. Sometimes you hear me say that, how it is so vital that from a global standpoint, we go after sort of this sort of solidarity where we can begin to not isolate ourselves and marginalize ourselves based on our wealth, based on our color, our race, our gender, and so on. And it's all a wonderful thing. And it's something that we, from a sociological standpoint, a psychological standpoint, and from a religious standpoint, and even from a political standpoint sometimes, we can make this as the ultimate good of society. We need to be able to do this. But here's where the delusion comes in. The delusion comes in when we begin to put forward policies and agendas to where, in order for us to sustain our wealth, in order for us to sustain our power, in order for us to sustain our status, we have to diminish other people. We have to exploit other people. So on one hand, we are preaching something about global solidarity and brotherhood, but on the other hand, our very existence hinges on the exploitation of other people. You look at what's happening in the world today, whatever war, wherever you want to pick it, whether in Gaza or the Ukraine or in Iran or in Africa somewhere, in the Congo, wherever you want to focus on, you will see that there is a significant incongruency between what we are putting forward as to how we ought to make our world a healthier and better place to live. But at the same time, we then have our very existence. In order for us to survive and to exist, we have to have war. We have to have a competent military system where maybe 85% of our budget has to be allocated for guns and military weapons and how we need to do all of that stuff. So that's what I am talking about when I talk about this cognitive delusion that we somehow seem to be involved. On one hand, there's the Bible on one hand, and on the other hand, there are the bombs and there are the weapons, and there is the greed and there's the selfishness. But on one hand, we are also in the Bible saying, look, let's treat others as we would want them to treat us. Let us be good to our neighbors. Let us be forgiven. Let us do. I mean, we hold all of these sort of things, but at the same time, the very practice also, and not just practice. I want to make this very clear. I'm not talking about practice. I'm talking about our very existence. In order for us to exist, in order for us to make America great, in order for us to make St. Vincent great, we have to climb on the backs of others. That is the delusion. That is the contradiction that I truly want for us to address. How we write our story, how we write our narrative to fit our needs and our desires. And then we legitimize that. And as we legitimize that, we then pass it on to and make it a way of life, a standard. And there's so many aspects of it that we can, for example, one of our traditional value system, one of the things that we hold dearly to, and when I say hold dearly to, I'm talking about the good book, this Holy Bible. I mean, I think we all, in every home, I notice in hotels, we have a copy of this. It's just about everywhere in terms of the Western culture, Western religion, between Christianity and other forms, all the various forms of religion. This book becomes the foundation for everything. But when you read it and you look at our way of life and the things that we hold dearly to, it doesn't fit. But yet we hold on to this. And my friend, my colleague and us today, we had this interesting debate about how delusional this is. How sometimes we sort of color what we in terms of saying, this is a psychosis, a pathology, an illness, we say it's faith. And so how we use words to now fit. And so the word faith becomes a replacement for our own bad behavior. Faith in this book, faith in God, faith in Jesus. But at the same time, when we do that, we then talk about tolerance. We talk about diversity. That diversity, I can't pronounce that correctly, but we talk about the whole idea of brotherhood and how, on one hand, we're doing all of that stuff, but our existence, in order for us to survive, the policies that are dear to us. If you look at the war industry, when you think about the billions that are going into, whether to create weapons and mass destruction, there are nations all over the world right now, scientists who are designing weapons of mass destruction. Governments, they do it secretly, obviously. But some of these same people, whether they have the Quran, use the Quran, or whether they use this, whatever, because each of these major religions do have a book with some of this. And if you look at it, all of the values tend to be the same. And the values are that, God, the great one, he wants us to love each other. He wants us to be kind to each other. And this is the ultimate. And then if we do all of these things, we will die and we'll go to heaven. And our whole life, this is what we're trying to do, is to internalize all of the principles and the values, whether it be in the Quran or in the Holy Scriptures, whatever it is. And if we do that, we're good citizen and the world is good. But yet, for the last thousands of years, what do we see? It's about there's another value system that is there. And my thing is, I'm saying it's delusional. It's psychotic. That we are very sick people. Because on one hand, we're preaching this, but on the other hand, we're saying in order for my life to have wealth, to be happy, and to be secure, I have to be able to annihilate all these other people over there. Because what they have, I want it, and we have to have it. We want to have our gas price go down. We want to have free oil. We want to have access. We want to control, and all of that. So on one hand, we can pack the Bible on one hand, and on the other side, we pack these other values. So that is kind of the discussion. And so while we were having this discussion, of course, we were looking at this other whole scenario that's on the news media today, how tragic it is, where another human being will spend his entire life in prison and will never be out again. So when you look at all of that in the society which we live, and yet over 2000, this book here says that over 2000 years ago, that the Son of God entered into the world. And when I say this, now you know that I am a Christian, that I believe in Jesus. So I believe in this book. So this is book, but there are other books. There's the Quran, there's all of that. So, but for tonight, I'm talking primarily to those of us who hold this book, to those of us who believe that Jesus is the Son of God and who believe that Jesus died so that we can have life and have it more abundantly. And my question tonight is, how do we as a Western society hold this book as a book that guides us, all of our decision making? How do we tonight as a society, a Western society, claim that Jesus is the Son of God and he has extended an invitation and he is part of our lives, and so all of everything that we do is governed and guided by this? Then why are we not putting our guns down? Why can't we begin to move in another direction? So those are just some of the contradictions that I hope tonight that we can have some discussion. And of course, like I said, there's some things I'm going to say tonight that you're not going to like. And that's why I picked this tonight, because I was looking at these two, my cousin Ashley, of course, on one hand, who just passed away. And Ashley, if you know Ashley, is a man with life, who's enjoying life. And every time you see him on Facebook, is a person who is smiling, he's happy and everything. But this morning, he went to bed last night and he didn't get up this morning because he had a heart attack. So I'm comparing that with the other situation that's on the news media tonight, where this other individual will spend the rest of his life incarcerated without possibility of parole. Here is what's going on in our society. And yet we have a story. We have a story in this book. A story in this book that talks about how much God loves us, that he sends his only son so that we can have life. And that life manifests itself in our ability to honor each other and to love each other and to create a community where there wouldn't be oppression and injustices, and where we can honor and respect and cherish each other. This is why he died. This is what, but anything, when you look at the world today, it is completely the opposite of that. But yet, we hold on to this tightly on one hand, and on the other, we have a whole different, what's driving our society, whether it be from Albany, the governor in New York State, or from the White House in Washington, D.C., or in the Prime Minister's office in St. Vincent, wherever you are listening tonight, we have to ask the tough question. When Jesus said on the cross, "It is finished," and he accomplished this, can we safely say today, when we look at the world, that that has been done? Is it just a story? Sounds good. But what about when you look at the way we choose to live our lives? So that's kind of where I want to engage us in this kind of discussion tonight, to ask ourselves, can we truly have global solidarity? And what would that mean? Can we truly be tolerant, where we become inclusive, where we can now, without any sacrifice, where we can now have the Muslim and the Hindus and the Judaizers and the Christians and the Protestants and the Catholics and the Anglicans and the Jehovah Witnesses and the Churches of God, all of these people, can we come together and have this global solidarity and fellowship without getting rid of this? That's what I'm trying to say to us tonight. So I'm saying it's delusional, psychotic, when we think that we can keep this book and have all of this solidarity, which is becoming part of our culture. We've been colonized culturally to believe that we can have this and at the same time be able to have this tolerance and be able to have this global solidarity globally. And here's the other thing. We are counting on politicians to make this happen. But we don't have the moral courage to say, in order for us to make that happen, we have to suspend this. Put this aside, put the Bible aside, and let us trust our politicians to bring us together and have the kind of unity that we need so that all people, wherever you are from, whatever your religious ideologies, that somehow we can tolerate all of that and have like a melting pot where we can somehow shake everything down, come up with this rich, colorful soup when you put it all together. And I'm saying to us tonight, that might be part of the infection, the delusional, psychotic, because now we're trying to rework redemption and we're not having the moral courage to say, let us lay this book aside, trust our politicians, trust our own wisdom, our own ability. Look at what we've done from the age of enlightenment. We're able to send men into outer space. Right now, as I speak, there are hundreds and thousands of people that are traveling in the air at some of them 600 miles an hour, 37,000 feet, and they're taking a nap. Okay, and we get eventually to where they're going. That's where we are. So my question is, when you look up the achievement of what man has achieved and you compare with what this book says, because with all of that achievement, we're still killing each other. We're still massacring each other. We have now decided that, how we use the word terrorist. Okay, how we use the word terrorist. It depends on who's got the power. The people with the power and the money are the ones who are able to label others as terrorists when they themselves, their behavior are exactly no difference from the terrorists. And that's why I tried to throw that other piece in. And that's the offensive piece, because I'm throwing in, the whole God thing in terms of this whole, because God is a loving, merciful, kind, and gentle. But when you read some of the stories in the Old Testament, you kind of scratch your head and say, well, wait a minute now. What's the definition of terrorism? You follow? What's the definition of terrorism? Well, you're probably going to say, well, God is a creator, and therefore he can do whatever he wants. He can kill whoever he wants to kill whenever he chooses to kill everybody. But that's not who God says he is. That's my point. So maybe some of these writers were using their own culture and their own agenda to frame God how they choose to frame him. Because the creator is, when Adam sinned, he provided a plan for Adam. He provided through Eve, he provided a plan and says, look, I create this plan, and this plan because I want to have fellowship with all of humanity. And my son will enter the world to make this possible. This is what this book says. Now, either we trust it, we believe it, or we're going to come up with our own alternatives and our own plans. And so, that's where I really want to walk us down this road. And I don't want to overlook any comments that you may have. And maybe there's some things that I may have already said that are offensive to you. And that's okay. My job is to challenge you to think, because much of our young people are having some of these same kinds of discussion and are seeing us as hypocrites. And we really are speaking out of two sides of our mouth. Because on one hand, we're getting on this bandwagon of this cultural transformation and the trends that are happening that's becoming a way part of our lives. And so the question for me tonight is, what do we do with this book? Do we burn it? Do we just, well, some of us are not going to burn it. We're just going to ignore it. we're just gonna put it in the box, and it becomes a silent kind of an approach. Is this book a living book? And is it still good? Is it still the guide for our life today? And should we follow it? And that's the challenge that I want to extend to each of us. So Stephanie says he is God of peace, but still a God of judgment. Okay, so I guess Stephanie is saying that he will punish you, but I want to say something, that there's a difference between God disciplining, because parents do discipline their children, but I don't think parents are going to decide, we have 5 kids, and we 2 of them are not really nice people, so why don't we burn those and kill those and keep this one over here? I don't know if that's that kind of illustration. It makes you want to vomit, don't it? And that is why the judge today made such a strong comment before he did his sentencing. It was a strong tongue lashing, because he was saying that behavior makes you an animal. You're not human. And so we need to be very careful with, yes, parents discipline their children, but they discipline their children because of their love and the bond that they have. And they do it as a way of correcting, as opposed to denigrating and destroying entire population simply because you want to have what they have. And I'm saying that that's something that our young people have a hard time wrapping their head around. And that is why it is so difficult to reach our young people, because we are speaking out of 2 sides of our mouth, and what we are presenting is almost offensive in some instances. And it becomes very difficult for people to wrap their head around some of these ideas. So I think we have to step back and ask some tough questions when we talk about globalization, when we talk about diversity, when we talk about tolerance. What does that look like? And how does that fit in? I can give just one example. Some of you may not like this example. I mean, you have the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Where God, and this is maybe what Stephanie is citing here, is that where he actually destroyed an entire twin city because of the level of corruption that has happened, how they had, the homosexual lifestyle, and where they're strong. He said, look, it's an abomination. It's intolerable. And he took action. But today, in our culture, the way we've been colonized, those passages are offensive. And even in some of our pulpits, we no longer use those verses. And the reason we don't is because it is offensive. And so we have to do 2 things. We have to ask God to retake it and repent and rewrite another whole story, or we're going to say he was right in the first time, and we can't alter it, we can't edit it, we can't change it. But in the world that we live in, everything that God has put here is being edited every day. And edited by whom? Who's doing the editing? Because churches are changing every day in order to survive. It's like, in order to survive, you have to go along in order to get along. And that's where we are as a people. So I'm saying, as I was having a discussion with my colleague today, is that we are treating a group of people who we have identified as suffering from antisocial behavior, who are psychotic on one hand, and whatever fancy term we put on it, but they're psychotic, they're delusional. But on the other side of that, we have a whole nother group of people who are in power, they have money, and they have status, and they're far more dangerous far more dangerous, because they're infecting far more people than the ones that we have in some of our psychiatric institutes, because they are isolated in the first place. They're isolated in the first place. But we have these other people who are delusional. We have them in places of government. We have them in places of churches, in pulpits, and we have them as husbands, and we have them as wives, raising our children. We have them as principals in our school, educators in our schools. We have them as entertainers that are educating and guiding our children. And I'm saying to us that so long as we keep this book, this is the manual. This is the manual. This is the manual that does the diagnostic. It tells us what right and wrong is, but it also tells us what the prescription is. And the prescription is very clear, because I heard Jesus saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, is that still applicable? Is this still relevant today? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. And can we trust that? Can we rely on that? Can we make that a part of our everyday experience? And until we can do that, I think we still need to have, no, the medication that we may have, another problem is what the prescription is. And I think that the prescription is the blood of Jesus. Now, I want to correct one thing, because sometimes I have a way of saying statements and don't really go back and correct it. Because when I talk about, how we perceive God as being a terrorist, and that was because we were having a discussion. And this was the example that the person was giving me. That today, if you have a power saying, look, we need that land over there. And so here's what I'm going to give it to you, because you're special to me. You are my people. I love you. We have a relationship to you. I made a covenant with you. So here's what I'm going to do. I want you to go over there, and I want you to kill everybody, kill the animal, kill the tree, wipe everybody out and take the land. And as a matter of fact, don't save a single soul, because if you do, I'm going to punish you. Now, in our definition of that today, we would say that that person is a terrorist. So that was the kind of discussion that I was being pushed back at. Let's see, it was being pushing at me. How? And they were waiting for a logical explanation from me. How do I explain that? And of course, my explanation is that God, everything that he has done and said, he portrays himself. Let us allow him to define himself. Let us not define him. Let us allow him to define who he is. And my argument is everything that he has said about himself, that he has done for humanity, is based on the foundation of his love, his kindness that he has for all of humanity. And by sending his son into the world was an extension of how much his investment of how much he cares for us. The tragedy here is certain people think that it's only for them. And they've created a whole culture around that, where they have some people who are less than, they are nobody, and that they have these people here who are right after God. And that's the way we are. And that's when we colonize people. I mean, if you think about 1492, as a matter of fact, one of the discussion that we were having in today in this discussion was, prior to 1492, in places like Haiti, prior to 1492, there was a culture there. And that culture, when the people came, they put label and said, that's voodoo. Voodoo. And we label that. And so they brought a whole nother version. And so it was interesting. My only way out of that discussion was to say, it's very interesting that the same people who said that what they were doing in Haiti was voodooism and all of that, and was how bad it was. Isn't it interesting that the same people, when you make a new building, come and you send for them and they sprinkle water in the four corners of the house? Why were they doing that? Why are they doing that? You buy a new car and you have a red bow. What is that about? So I'm saying it's how convenient it is for us to create, when we want to oppress people, we create a whole nother language and we label them in order to exploit. Because when you look at the behavior of Catholicism, and you look within and you put it within the culture of Haiti, for example, you ask yourself the question: the reason that the Haitian system became so close to Catholicism, because there's a whole lot of similarity. Just a matter that you had to have a collar. See, the Bush doctors before 1492, they didn't have collars. They had their own different garments, different. But after that, when Spain came over, the priest had a whole different outfit. And that outfit was now legitimized. And it became divine. And even to this day, there are those who wear collars. And you see someone with a collar and you automatically give, because it invokes something. So it's no longer about character. It's about the collar that they carry. And so what I'm saying to us, how do you differentiate between, isn't that a form of psychotic behavior, delusion? That we accept people simply because they have a collar, that makes them righteous and that makes them have a special connection with God? That's how we live. Now, I'm not saying, please don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to endorse Obia. I'm not trying to endorse Buddhism, or I'm not trying to endorse, some of the primitive cultures before the Spanish came to this world. I'm not trying to endorse those. I'm just trying to show you how we exploit people by defining them, creating languages for them, and we build that. And what you have is two systems, completely two systems that you have. And you create systems, and that have certain economic consequences where it impacts on people. I was saying part of the discussion today, I was saying, growing up as a person, you can go to the sea, get a little fish, and you go on somebody's breadfruit tree, and you get a breadfruit, a roasted breadfruit. You got 3 meals there. Cost you nothing. It's all free. Not a penny. Not a penny. But capitalism have changed the system. You can go at sugar cane and you can squeeze that sugar cane and you have enough sugar there, right? Everything was. But we've changed all of that. And now we're all trying to become a certain way and legitimize that. And I'm saying we've done the same thing with this book. That's all. So I don't want to get too far with the illustrations, because I have a way of going too far with the illustration. But I'm saying to you, it's the same kind of situation. So we still have to ask ourselves, is this book still relevant? And how we... So Sister Estelle Graves sends a passage here, and I think it's Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5-6, and she's quoting it from the New American Standard Bible, the New Version, 1995 version. It says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. That's verse 5. And then verse 6 says, in all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your way. Somebody moved, someone said something, they moved it. And he'll make your way, your path straight. And I thank you for that passage, because certainly that's the way. And what I'm saying, Sister Graves, is this still true today? And do you see it today? I think that this is getting less, this is being minimized, this is being silent, and you're seeing a whole nother cultural evolution that is happening, that is transforming our lives, transforming our identity now is connected, not to this book, but rather to the values and to the principles of our world. Nadine says, that is why broad is the way that leads to destruction, and it is very clear that many are showing how easy it is to find it. And so if you look at our culture today, and that's where my try, if you look at our culture today, whether it be in our educational system, in our system of politics, what our definition of democracy, think about our definition of democracy. How do we define democracy? And who define democracy? It's the people with the power and the money and the guns, and not guns, but the weapons. That's how they define the term. So how do you define what is just? How do you define what is righteousness? How do you define those things? Are we going to allow this to give us the definition? As Sister Graves says, lean not on your own understanding. Everything about the 21st century is about our own understanding, defining. And that's why I gave the illustration how we are now defining God to the point now where we are even implying that it would be offensive for me to say that if you want to have a relationship with God, you have to abandon the Quran. You have to step out of Judaism. You have to step out of Hinduism. You have to step out of Buddhism if you are going to, because this book says there's no other name given among men whereby we can be saved. Now, either this is true or it's not. Let's stop playing games with people. Either you lay it aside, put it down. Have the courage to put it down. Say it's no longer serving me. It's no longer good. It's archaic. It's obsolete. We need a new version, a new way of doing things. Now, we need moral courage to be able to do this. Tonight, this program is not very popular because of this subject. What I'm saying to us that this book is simply saying there is no other name. You can't be a Buddhist, you can't be a Hindu, you can't be any of that. According to this book now. Now we can decide, and that's what I'm trying to say to us. There is no room in this book for that level of tolerance, for religious tolerance like that. That's not what the way was intended. So we use the word tolerance because it's a political concept. In order for it to be enforced, democracy is a political concept. And in order for it to be enforced, you must have a political system to enforce it. And so we have to begin to ask ourselves, as a matter of fact, in some areas right now, it is illegal for me. As a matter of fact, this book right now, if a teacher were to take this book tomorrow morning in a public school system and read a passage at the beginning of a class, she'd be terminating because she'd be considering violating the law of the country. So why do we then talk about we're spiritual, we're God-fearing nation? In our court systems, is in God we trust. In many courts, still there. But it is nothing more than a slogan. There's no reality to it. And so my question tonight is, are we going to have the courage to be able to stand up and say what we need to say? So Stephanie said, God never changed, and his words remain the same from the beginning to the end. Now, if Stephanie is correct, and I think this book says that. Hebrews says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews says that, right? So if that's true, how do we move that statement, Stephanie? How do we move that statement from a sheer slogan to where it becomes a practical reality in our educational system, in our political system, in our entertainment system, in our homes, how we raise and guide our children? How do we move this from just a mere slogan and make it a reality in our everyday lives? How do we do that? And that's the tough question, isn't it? That's the tough question. How do we, the Bible, it talks again and again about, Paul wrote into Timothy, he says, all scripture is given by the inspiration of God, is profitable for correction, for instruction, that the person of God, male, female, may be able to be fully complete in terms of the shaping of their character and who they are. So, is this book still useful? Should we still use it? And what do we do with it? And so that's the crisis, I think, that we are in tonight. I didn't get very far, but I want to, try to, I want to look at Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 16. It says, thus said the Lord, stand by the ways and see and ask for the ancient past. That's what Jeremiah. So we're talking about a situation that's not new. This is during the Jeremiah time that he says, look, I want you to stand in the way and seek and ask for the ancient past, where the good way is, and walk in it. Then he says, then you will find a resting place for your souls. Listen to this, my brothers and sisters, my friends. Jeremiah got this message that says that once you find this true way, you will find rest for your souls. That means you can never have peace. You can't get it from the drugs. You can't get it from crack. You can't get it from alcohol. You can't get it from sex. You can't get it from money. The only way Jeremiah is saying that you can have this peace for your souls is by identifying the true way. And many of us tonight don't have the moral courage to identify the path that I am on, you are on. The courage to say, this is who I am. This is the path that I am. And the destination for this place that I'm heading is destruction. But maybe tonight, when you do your assessment, you can come away and feel proud and say, look, the destination is positive and is good. I have nothing to worry about. But not all of us can say that tonight. So Jeremiah simply said, but he said, but they said, this is what Jeremiah, that's part of Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 16. But they said, we will not walk in it. Many of our leaders have taken the stand tonight that they will not walk by it. Many of our leaders in the White House, in Congress, in the government of the United States has taken the stand. We will not walk in it. And a large majority of American citizens have taken this position. We will not walk by it. This book is no longer relevant. Because to keep this book is to become divisive. To keep this book is to isolate the Muslim, the Hindu. You can't keep this book and have universal and global solidarity and global friendship. I want to read something to you. And this is about Jesus's last prayer. Let me just, Sister Graves, let me just read her passage she gives here. It says, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 20, verse 24. Where is the wise man? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has God not made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not come to know God, God was well pleased through the foolishness of the message preached to you, preached to save those who believe. And verse 22 says, for indeed the Jews ask for a sign and the Greeks search for wisdom. Verse 23, but we preach Christ crucified, to the Jews a stumbling block, and to the Gentiles, and it didn't give me the rest of that verse there. or I think it says C, so I can go to the rest. To Jews, and Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. So I thank you for that particular passage. But I want to read this passage to us because this is the final moment, one of the final moment of Jesus. And here he is expressing his what he feels. He's expressing, his because he's coming to the end of his ministry. And now he's going to his Father. And here's what it says in verse 20. I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those who believe in me through their word. Verse 21, that they may all be one, even as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me. Now that's Jesus himself. He is the one who died for us. He is the one who says, look, I will shed my blood. And he did. He was raised from the dead and ascended to his Father. He is the one who procured our salvation, our deliverance. And he's saying that all of my people, he says, I will build my church and the gates of hell. And so everybody who enters in his kingdom, in his house, his body, he expects them to be one. So I'm saying to us, there could be no tolerance, no competitors with Jesus. And we should never, ever have to apologize to anyone to say that Jesus is the Son of God and he is my Savior. He purchased me with his own blood, and therefore I will be with him until the day. I think there's a beautiful statement. I think it was in Polycarp when he was in the first century. They were burning him because he believed in Jesus, and they wanted him to denounce Jesus. And I don't remember the exact quotation, but I'm going to summarize. He said, look, I'm 95 years old. And for all these time I've been with Jesus, do you really think in this last moment at my age that I am going to now turn my back on my Savior? And he was burned. But he understood that you can destroy the body, but the soul will live forever. And that is where the beautiful picture of Stephen, when he's being stoned to death, and he was able to say, Lord, forgive them. And I believe that his death got the host of heaven to stand and applaud the sort of courage and the sacrifice and the undying love to where Jesus was number one in his life. And we all are going to be stretched. We're going to be challenged. Every last one of us are going to be challenged, whether it be cancer or some mental health issues, relationship issues, financial. We are going to be stretched. But I hope when that day comes, that you'll be able to say as Polycarp, or to be able to say as Joshua, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, no matter what. We're living in challenging times, extremely challenging times. And we're going to be tested, and we're going to be stretched. But I hope that when that day comes, that you will have the strength to be able to say, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For the Lord, he is my rock. He is my salvation. And he is with me. And this great Savior who says, I am, that he will be part of your journey. And he will be the strength. That's why John puts it very well. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So we are being challenged. Is God a terrorist? Or is he a savior? How do you experience him tonight? How do you experience him? How do you experience Jesus? Do you experience him as a loving, compassionate Savior? And are you willing to give your life completely to him and to trust him? Because this is difficult times. And I tell you this, that God tonight will make you equal to whatever the world is throwing at you. But you've got to allow him to colonize and to be a part of your life tonight. So I truly want to thank all of you tonight for being here. Steph, Daff, it's really a privilege to have you. Steph, it's a privilege to have all of you. Graves, Sister Graves, and Nadine, and I hope I haven't missed any of you for being here tonight. Sister Felina, it's certainly a privilege to have you. Sister Deborah, Sonia, and Sister Diana, actually, because for both Diana and Sister and Daff, the Ashley, actually, we're all cousins, and we certainly want to. I want to express my condolences to the rest of the family, and try to keep me informed as to what the final arrangements are going to be and where they're going to be. And I know tonight that your hearts are heavy because he was such a life bubbling kind of a guy. And certainly I know that this is a very difficult time for his family, for those who are closest to him, especially there in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So my condolences out to the extended family. And so I want to thank all of you tonight for being here in the program. And I apologize for sharing these personal stuff, but certainly what better place to do it than a place like this to express our condolences to when a family member passes, and the way in which he passed. He went to sleep and had a heart attack and never got up. So we certainly want to remember the rest of the family as well. So Kamal, you've been very silent tonight, and I truly thank you for your patience. And certainly see you guys next week, same time, same place. And may God continue to bless each of us and keep us. And so the message, Kamal, for us is that all we have is today. And I said to Steph earlier today, look, let's just live one day at a time. Let's just be the very best that we can, do all that we can today, and make sure that we have that full and abundant life in our experience today. Because we don't know what tomorrow is going to be. All we know is what we have today in the here and now. Let's maximize that, and let's make that the very best that we certainly can. And just certainly, Diane, we will certainly keep the whole family in our prayers, and she's asking for prayers. And I hope that you'll remember the Ashley and the Mattis family, the Slater family, and the Davis family, and all those folks who are connected with this loss at this particular time. So Kamal, thank you so much, my brother, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Dr. Claudius Davis. A wonderful program it was. And I must say, we do appreciate having you each and every Wednesday here on WeFM to bring us that message of the full and abundant life. Well, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there you have it, the Full and Abundant Life radio program hosted by Dr. Claudius Davis. And this program comes your way each and every Wednesday from 9 until 10. God's willing, do join him again next Wednesday for another edition of the program, The Full and Abundant Life, right here on WeFM. Thank you very much, Dr. Davis. We're looking at 4 minutes after 10 o'clock here in the Eastern Caribbean.